The brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp, brothers Wisp. The brothers Wisp. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the brothers Wisp. Let's take.
Hey guys, this is Mike with the Brothers Wisp, and we are at Wispapalooza 2021. First big show in a while. And here we have Jaime Fink of Mimosa Airspan.
Hey Mike, thank you for having me.
It's nice that you guys always have something new every show to put on film.
We certainly try. At least we had 2 years in the gap with the pandemic, and this particular launch is near and dear to my heart because when I started the company, I knew the 8x8 technology and 802.11ax was on the way. So this is something I've been personally working on since 2012. So it only took 9 years, but we're finally here, and in particular, we love launching here. We had a great launch party, and everybody was out throwing axes at our axe throwing party for our AX axe launch, which is a lot of fun. So thank you all. We just enjoy seeing everybody's faces right now and being in person. So great to see you, Mike.
Good. So what have you announced?
Sure. So I'll start with some basic stuff that people recognize quickly. Just a couple weeks ago, we announced a new backhaul called the B5X. The B5X is borrowing the series of X-series antennas that we use on our really popular C5X product line. So those are going to use those twist-on antennas, and it's got basically the same innards as the B5C technology. So it's 2x80 megahertz channels, so 1.5 gigabits, and that's going to span from 4.9 gigs up to 6.4 gigs. So this is already going up into the 6 gig. In fact, all of our current products all go up to 6.4 gigs. Even our 11AC past generation of technologies do that. So we have a lot of people doing STAs out there for these 6 gig products, whether they're the newest 11AX or not, but that B5X is really a really great value for us to get those antenna, really high performance and low cost. And a little teaser we haven't announced yet, but we're going to be introducing 2 new antenna gains that are higher gain for all of our X-Series products next year. And we're going to talk more about X-Series products as we talk about our CPE as well. So the X-Series is super important to us, and you're going to see high gain versions of those coming out in early next year.
Sweet.
So second up, the big news was really our 11AX Wi-Fi 6E platform. So this is the first platform taking advantage of the 160 megahertz channels. It also is the only product right now that does the whole range of 5 gig and up into the 6 gig. So 5.15 up to 6.425, that's the Uni 5 band with the FCC. And it's mind-blowing technology. It is the only 8x8 chipset that's available in the market. That's our Quantenna chipset in the 6 gigahertz. So we have, I think, a nice market lead with this. And that 8x8 gives us a lot of big advantages. Not only, of course, does it provide a capacity advantage. We're going to be doing multi-user MIMO to 7 gigabits of capacity in the downstream direction to the access point. And it also gives us beamforming capability. So the incredible thing about the size of this access point, if you see it in person, it's incredibly compact, but it's 24 dBi of an integrated 90-degree sector. And I personally never seen a sector that large in the 90-degree category in the 5 and 6 gig, and we've optimized that antenna across the entire band. So it's an incredible piece of technology. And that beamforming then also leads us towards interference management capabilities. So we're chock full of new interference management capabilities we never had with the 11AC gear. So first of all, beamforming. We can drop a null as we're receiving at the access point as we're listening to clients, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. Other things that are noise fighting in this band, of course, 6 gig band is going to be super nice and quiet. That automatic frequency coordinator with the FCC is obviously going to keep consumers out of the band. It's going to have very low power Wi-Fi indoors, mostly in the band. So it's a great start for that band already. But then we also get OFDMA technology. So in the past, a single channel was our resource unit. So if I had an 80 megahertz channel and I took some noise, all I could do was do things like automatic gain control to get rid of low level noises. But if I took a big piece of noise, it's going to knock out the whole channel. In OFDMA, we're now dealing with 2 megahertz resource units that chunk up the entire channel. So 160 megahertz channel now has these nice split up resource units, and I can choose to drop resource units if I see noise in any of those areas. So it's a really smart, obviously automatic system that can help control the noise in the band. So there's a ton going on in our system now that handles in-band noise for the first time. Everybody up until now has been focusing on band edge and channel edge noise. This is really game-changing technology for noise avoidance, so we're really proud of that. So we're getting now up to 7 gigabits of performance on this base station in the downstream, and in the upstream, we're talking OFDMA. OFDMA is so important to this industry because it for the first time lets us schedule upstream transmissions simultaneously. So what that turns out to mean to you is scale of the access point. We're going from 50 users up to 250 users, and the latency is going to drop considerably from what we had with the previous generation. So we're expecting a 4 to 5x reduction of latency. So we're expecting to see sub 5 millisecond latencies in the TDMA modes. So OFDMA also, of course, is just giving us better scale and scheduling, of course, in the process. So we can get a lot more traffic packed in, because in the old world, one user might not have filled up the time slot going upstream. Now we have 4 users that can take advantage of that. So it's an asymmetric system when we do this, so 1.75 gigs down to the client, to each client, and then upstream it's a 1.7 gigabit shared channel in the upstream direction. And that can be programmed and provisioned, so we can do 2 clients simultaneously, 4 clients simultaneously, et cetera. So lots of cool technologies in there, but I mean, it's a mind-blowing spec of a product, and we've really gotten really aggressive with the design and pricing. So we're going to price this at list price $19.99. I'd expect that in the high 1600 range out in the channel fairly soon. But it's a great price point, I think, given what's out there. But the previous competitive access point in these bands was 1 gigabit per second. And that's 7x performance on that. On the CPE side, let's talk about the C6X. C6X, again, the X series antenna, very similar to our previous technologies. In fact, our previous C5X can be used in transition, or it can be used as just the lowest cost client to the A6. It'll talk multi-user MIMO, so we can get more capacity in a base station, and it could be used in transition if you're already a Mimosa customer with A5s. So this is going to give you 2 to 4x the performance of an A5, even running with an old OFDM client. So pretty cool transition story. And then the C6X, when you add them on in OFDMA, that's what gets us to those low latency numbers and capacity. And the price point's awesome. The price point we're setting at $195, so you're going to get an antenna, power supply, mount, everything you need for about a little over $200 by the time you walk out the door. So I think we've done an incredible job of just completely shifting the value dollars per gigabit to just on steroids here. And honestly, what we're seeing in the 6 gig band is easily a 20 dB difference in signal level. What that means is we're going to get 1024 QAM most of the time as we see the lower noise and all these noise fighting capabilities. So long story short, I think we've got a great product platform. It's going to be hitting the market in January timeframe. We've got a huge backlog already, so of course it's going to take a little time to get through, so probably most people start seeing things in the March-April timeframe, but we've done a huge job of pre-ordering as many components and parts as we could. We expect this to be a big winner for us, so we're going to really try to build as much volume as we can for y'all.
So yeah, with these chip shortages and things going on, so you've kind of pre-purchased some of that to kind of get around some of that issue?
We've certainly had to do a lot of operational work and engineering work to deal with end of lives, and shortages. That's been going on every product throughout the pandemic. So we're having to work that much harder every time we have to take an order to fulfill them. But we've done a very good job. Our distributors are ordering typically at least twice as early as they used to, and we're forecasting easily a year out with our component suppliers. So as a public company, we have a lot more cash that we can feel more comfortable about doing those things. We went IPO about 6 weeks ago, so it's a lot easier for us to do a lot of things we couldn't do before. We really could invest more where we need to and bring product over a little earlier and work with our strategic partners. So I think it's good news. It's been a tough time, but I think we made it through very, very well during the process.
All right. Earlier you had mentioned from the C5 platform transitioning up to the new 6 platform, and OFDM versus OFDMA. I assume there's some trade-offs.
Yeah, it's really latency, and I think latency as it relates to number of clients. So obviously, the more OFDM clients you have, we're not able to do OFDMA in the upstream. So we can do multi-user MIMO and get more downstream capacity, which is good. So if you're already constrained in the A5, that's a good thing for you. You might want to make that change just alone, but it definitely has that impact. OFDMA is just a game changer, both in interference, noise management, and in latency. So definitely, you don't want to do it necessarily long term unless your goal is, if you're trying to do a very low cost deployment and you have slow client speeds and you want to put a lot of clients on, go for it. It's going to work really well. So we wanted to be able to have a very low cost option for that market, and using the scale of the A6, because the A5C and there's no real scalable fixed wireless platform in the old gen of technology. So we want to take advantage of that AP, even if the clients want to use our lowest cost client when we need to.
Sure. And so then in the OFDMA, it's not an on-off. You can add them on and take them off?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's no problem with that. That's all dynamic. I don't really know if we're going to be able to intermix the modes simultaneously, depending on client behaviors. We're still learning about some of that stuff.
Okay.
But so I'd assume not yet, but
okay.
It doesn't matter. I mean, the more OFDM you put on, obviously, you're going to have less time for OFDMA.
Sure.
So.
Okay. And then I think it's all the questions I have for that.
Was about our favorite topic. SFPs. Oh. How could we forget this?
How could we?
I knew you weren't going to let me, but you almost did. So yeah, we've done something quite special on this platform. We obviously were badgered for years about DC power and fiber connections on the products. We've done that on a few products, but not every product. The A6 starts off with both a PoE. We've left that at a gigabit so we can have the most stable PoE as we need it. But then we also have a DC 48 volt input as well. So you could use either one. And then we have two SFP pluses. And so you could do two 10 gigabit fiber links. And the reason for that is I want to be able to daisy chain between multiple units at the tower. So you don't need a switch if you're putting in a small site. And that's a huge savings if you had to put in a 10 gigabit SFP plus switch that's outdoor rated. Now you could just put in your backhaul and your access points and interconnect them easily with the daisy chain. So we think that's a really slick feature. It is a really nice piece of that platform for the price point that we're putting at. I love that feature. It's by far my favorite. I'd almost call it the Mike Hammett feature, but we went beyond that, so we did one better.
Sure, good, good. Yeah, and actually that's something I've been asking for, not as intently, but dual SFP plus, because I like the whole redundancy factor of it too.
Yes. Yeah, I mean the redundancy thing I think is important, but I really like the daisy chaining, because I just think there's a lot of cost-strapped people, and this is already starting to move up in cost on the access point. So
sure.
we want to make if we can take $1,000 out of the price of putting a switch in, then that really represents a lot of the cost basis of the access point. So I think it's a really good trade-off. It's a good way to go for this. So.
Okay, something I just thought of. So then in this new OFDMA world with all the different streams and stuff,
yeah.
Will it make it more challenging doing link budget calculations, coverage plots, for somebody trying to figure out how much can I do?
Yeah.
Traditionally it was, there's this transmit power at this modulation and
sure.
there's receive sensitivity and that's it.
Yeah.
How does that change?
To some degree, you're getting some favorable work from the FCC with the AFC. The AFC is going to tell you these channels are free. So, and because you have only ISPs really outdoors and some of the professional Wi-Fi guys, you're not going to be competing with nearly as much stuff unless it's at shared tower locations. So I think that part's quite a bit easier. Now on OFDMA, one of the nice things is if you see some errant behaviors, we can de-resource unit when we see little pops of noise in those areas. But broadly speaking, this shouldn't really be any different. All that stuff automatically adapts per client and automatic transmit power levels on both sides, et cetera. So all that stuff is all automated now. I think we did a really good job with that on the A5 series actually, and that's continuing into this series. So I think it's going to be actually even easier, because in the past you might have had to move a channel if you ran into a problem, and then you might run into sync problems, then you might run into a client issue of a client having not being as good on a particular channel. So we do keep track of every client's spectrum performance at the access point, and we can make those intelligent decisions. But with this resource units and such, we can take these big channels and not worry if there's noise in them. And that's a big deal. So I think it's going to be easier, not harder, for doing the planning. And the only thing you're going to have to do is when you want to synchronize, you're going to have to pay attention to your sync timing windows and things like that and make sure they're consistent.
So then on the sync stuff, is that like what sort of reuse are you expecting, or any?
Yeah, it's going to be, well, on these they're 90s, so back to back, so we can do 2 channels per site. Here's the cool thing, it's 60 bits per hertz is the native spectral efficiency of the A6, and back to back we're doing 120 right now on a channel at a site. So it's out of this world, considering 11AC was a little bit above 10 bits per hertz. The best in the industry right now was 20 bits per hertz, so we're 6x that right now.
Nice. Yeah. Alrighty, I think that's all I've got for now.
Awesome.
Is there anything else you've got? Are we good?
I think we did pretty well here. So thanks for the opportunity to do this, and hello to the Brothers Wisp Nation out there, and miss you if you weren't at the show.
I'm, on our Slack, we already had lots of people asking questions that have.
Great to hear. Hopefully we answered some of them. Thanks
Sure.
a lot, Mike.
All right, thank you.
The Brothers Wisp. The Brothers Wisp, Brothers Wisp. The Brothers Wisp. The Brothers.
You're now listening to Greg, it's the Brothers Wisp. Let's take a ride through space on this mothership. Wireless networking. We talk about equipment and methodology, so sit back and start learning. Lighten up the tower so people can start searching. Shooting up the web in neighborhoods, net surfing. We got horrible jokes, we're loud and annoying, but we're informative facts, we're not disappointing. Just give us a listen, cause fun is the mission. I'm telling you, you don't know what you are missing. Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.